Welcome to Gray Areas. It's February 17th, 2026. If you're watching the stream, which is the way to consume the podcast these days, you can see what news is already on the screen. If you are listening, my apologies. I don't even know if I posted last week's episode, come to think of it. I think I fucking forgot. But either way, you're finding out that this is also not the anniversary show, and the anniversary show is not real.
Yeah, I think it'd be funny to do the anniversary show where it's just you. And, I could just sit here silently since I can only chime in on, I don't know, a third of things. And Sean and Dave just disappear.
I did think to myself, what happens if I have to do the show by myself? And I was like, well, that probably isn't going to happen because even if the snow had been bad, then I could have just put Cody on Discord because I don't need Dave on Discord because he's also gone. And instead, it's just the two of us, so fuck the anniversary show. Maybe it'll happen next week, although Dave will be, I think, on the East Coast when that happens. But
he says he's going to try and join, though. He said that in the text messages. You have that on record.
And, I wouldn't really care so much, except I'm a stickler for trying to follow certain, programming notes and schedules and stuff. To plug the anniversary show 2 weeks ago and find out, 5 seconds after we go off air that it's not going to happen, and then be like, okay, well, next time, okay, now next week it is going to happen, and then be like, nope.
But you found that out on Monday. So, which one did you dislike more? 5 minutes after the episode ended, or 24 hours before it was supposed to happen?
I guess the first one. Because Maisie at least was texting Sean to be like,
shut the fuck up, Sean. Stop saying that.
Yeah. Regardless, that should be next week, and if not, then it won't be in the same month as the anniversary, so at a certain point it loses its meaning, but we'll see. That also means that the next trivia night, which we talked about, probably isn't happening until mid-March because of the way the schedules work out.
Good.
In the interim, Cody and I are going to talk about wrestling. Please don't turn off the show immediately. And they're like, what? But we're not really talking about it from a perspective of oh my God, is CM Punk going to retain? Or what are the storylines going on? It's more so about the world of wrestling, how it kind of folds into greater sports/entertainment. I'm not putting those two words together, but it does fit both categories. And then even a little bit of political stuff that's going on. There has been all sorts of political news over the last 2 or 3 months that we couldn't really address because of pre-programming that we had already set up for December or didn't want to just because, while it's really important, also a couple of us have jobs where we shouldn't touch some of that. We're going to have to touch a little bit of it in this show just because it's become part of a national conversation. But overall, we're kind of talking more about trends, broadcasting, social issues than anything about two guys locking up in the middle of the ring. And I'm gonna let Cody dictate where we go first.
It's weird because again, we've talked about this numerous times as to how Chris realized I liked wrestling when we started working together, and he is an inspiration as to getting me back into wrestling after I had lapsed for a while. And again, he knows, and I think anyone who knows me at all knows that the Royal Rumble, which happened a couple weeks ago, is my favorite thing in wrestling. It always has been, going back years and years. It goes back to WCW and having World War III where we have 3 rings, and it's the shittier version of it. But still, I enjoyed it. It was funny. And I didn't watch this year's Royal Rumble. And it's the first one I haven't watched in... And we have to go back to Del Rio winning, I think, is the last time I didn't watch.
Ew.
I'm pretty sure it's that far back to where even if I wasn't really watching, I would turn the Rumble on or find a way to do it, illegally stream it, whatever, And unfortunately, the big reason for that, and then I think we'll go from here, is back was it July or so now, I guess, WWE, after starting its own network, which was great. And again, I don't know why it fully failed or how it failed, but it was making its own TV shows, its own version of Punk, its own little cartoons, all this own content of stuff that I consumed every single bit of and subscribed to the WWE network pretty much monthly. And then that left to go to Peacock, and which was great. I'm like, whoa, well, I already have Peacock. I already watched stuff on there, and that brought all the pay-per-views over. And so for a long, long time, what was that, 5 years? I guess it's probably 5 or 6 years based on the contract.
Something like that.
That we were able to watch, pay-per-views, or now they're known as premium live events or whatever bullshit you want to say. Those move behind maybe the most insane paywall we could possibly have with ESPN, which is if you have ESPN, well, for some cable people, very few it seems to be, you will get this ESPN Unlimited thing, the new version of what their paywalled stuff is, which includes ESPN Plus, which technically doesn't really exist anymore. in this all minutia thing. Point being is that's $30 a month. So the WWE basically said anyone who's been on Peacock, which I think was $10 a month, $8, whatever it was, if you're me and you were getting Peacock for $25 for a year by tricking it and getting it on sale, I was paying very little to be a WWE fan and watch every premium live event, which, let's be real, if you want to watch every weekly show and go through the 3 hours on USA and all that, that's all fine and well. I wasn't doing that anymore. You haven't done that for some time because you can consume a lot of what matters most through the YouTube accounts, through the social media, all of that.
Yep.
So I think if you're watching every single PLE, you're pretty dedicated fan. Well, when you dump that behind the paywall and make it $30 a month for someone who has cable, has access to ESPN, and I can't watch that because Optima doesn't offer it to me. So trying to, at a minimum, triple my price at a high end, I was paying $250 a month. So I don't know, whatever the math is on that, $250 into $30. I don't watch pay-per-views anymore. I could go out of my way to really try and find them and illegally stream them, but it wasn't really worth the effort. Never mind the fact that this year's Rumble was in Saudi Arabia. I'm not a big fan of the fact that they've done this in the first place. And, that gets into the wrestling, nitty gritty of, well, it's not going to have a lot of surprise people because they're in Saudi Arabia. Everyone has to go out there. People can find things out. You have a lot of pre-prep stuff. They're doing all this crap. I really don't like that the women have to dress in sausage suits, which I've now found that they have to pay for themselves just to compete in another country, which seems like horse shit. And I can't believe, and then never mind the fact that normally it's like one women's match in Saudi Arabia. Well, this was the Royal Rumble. So now you need 30 women to have to go out of their way to get gear they're never going to wear, yada, yada, yada. So like everything about this year's Royal Rumble just soured me from where they transitioned into, which is then really funny because I was in a drive-through at In-N-Out as Chris is texting me on the Sunday, and my response was, I didn't even pay attention. I can take a guess as to who won, and I was unfortunately right with both answers, given that Liv Morgan and Roman Reigns are the default obvious choices to go to, with the fact that we're 4 WrestleManias deep into what seemingly is at least with Punk, it's going to be different. I'll give him that. But we're kind of revolving around the same group of people. And again, the thing I always loved about Royal Rumble was we're trying to put somebody over. And let's be real, in the last 10 years, we haven't really done anymore. I can that now that we're not really using it to push new talent. Uso was a little bit of that, if we're being real. It did push him into the main card thing, but it was also getting just a rematch. And so it's just kind of a bummer that it's made wrestling really inaccessible, which can dive into the other part of WrestleMania was in Vegas last year. We toyed around with the idea of going. We looked at tickets and said, fuck that. Well, guess what? This year, it's the same exact thing. I've toyed around with maybe it'd be fun to go to Vegas and be around the environment. Well, I've come to find out that apparently they're trying to block the WrestleMania from being shown in the city of Las Vegas in bars. Because they want you to go, because their ticket sales are terrible, because they're charging $300 for the cheapest ticket, I believe, at the tippy top of Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. This company, again, it got out of Vince McMahon's hands. That was wonderful and great. He's a terrible sleazebag. Unfortunately, with who bought it, which I guess was maybe the Saudis or TKO, which is the UFC, it has come into just the epitome of capitalism. Ring ads all over the place, nonsense sponsorships all over the place, endless shit. Splitting the streaming to where I don't even know if we're doing Saturday main event, but that was still on Peacock. PLEs are on ESPN. Raw is on Netflix, the most accessible thing at this point. And SmackDown is on USA, which I don't know if the USA app exists anymore, and it might be lumped into Peak, because I think I remember realizing it was now really hard to watch USA without watching it on actual TV when it was happening. So I can't even really watch replays of that. It's priced a bunch of people out, and I think shied a bunch of people away from wanting to do it for political and ethical and monetary reasons. And it's in a weird space because, again, ESPN gave it lots and lots of money to hide those PLEs behind it. So WWE doesn't really care. It doesn't have to care if anyone's watching right now, because it's cut all of its media deals. And so it left a lot of weird fans behind. And the one really funny interaction I have going back, and this is all the way back to June, is I went to a TNA event, which is funny because it's fringe WWE at this point.
Yep.
And I talked to a couple of fans around the arena, but the really funny one was getting out of the arena, going down the street and going to a QT and getting a drink and seeing a dad and his 2 sons in wrestling gear. And I'm in a wrestling shirt, so naturally he starts to say, hey, did you just go to the TNA event? I'm like, yeah, we did. And he's like, Man, it was so cool to be in. It was in Mullet Arena at ASU, so a couple thousand seats, really, really close for like $70. And the whole spectacle of it felt like a house show. Again, it felt like just what wrestling is at its core of chanting and being high energy and having fun. And he was like, yeah, he's like, we're WWE fans, but it's too hard to go. Like, Raw costs us $150. He's got 2 kids. He's like, I can get these 2 kids this close for $70 and enjoy it so much more. And the spirit of it. And I just wonder how many people are out there in a similar vein. Because when Raw came to Phoenix, I was going almost every single time because I love going to wrestling live. And that's when it was $65 to sit up on the top level. I'm like, that's absolutely worth the money for 3 hours. Now it's much more than that. And it's just, there's so many avenues where it's hard to watch and it's not fun to watch and monetarily doesn't make sense anymore.
It's tough because it's not even just restricted to WWE. And WWE has dabbled with greed before, but it feels like never at a level quite like this. I mean, consider the recent NBA All-Star game. There were a lot of posts about how empty the stadium was. Same idea. It was so priced out that not even like medium fans could attend. And in some cases, you're pushing on the diehards because they're like, well, why would I want to pay this much when I've been loyal to your brand for so long, or when I can just watch this at home, at a bar, whatever. It's interesting because of all these things happening at the same time that Cody mentioned, because now it's like, okay, you get nickeled and dimed on every front of being a fan. You pay more to watch the PLEs, which is still such a stupid name, but whatever. You pay more to engage in any of the content online, streaming it, whatever. You pay more in the arena, of course. And again, while the arena experience is getting more expensive overall, you're also seeing a little bit of pushback on it. Mm-hmm. The Suns are one notable example, and I'm not using this as a Phoenix Suns plug, but they have like affordable menu items at their arena now. And guess what? It must be working pretty well because the Charlotte Hornets just announced they're doing the same thing at their arena.
Vegas Golden Knights did the same thing. They have a low because they were pricing people out being on the Strip in Vegas. They have it's not a great deal, but it's still better because the food is expensive around there. They did the same thing.
So there is some signs of it being like, okay, not every company, not every team, not every institution is looking for more money. And look, capitalism is what it is. It'd be fun to have Dave on here to talk about that side of things. But the point is, people trying to make the most money out of a situation and sort of getting blood from a stone is by no means new. The problem is the blood that's coming out of the stone is also staining other things. You can talk about the Saudi arrangement. You can talk about all of it just kind of feels gross right now, and that's a weird thing to be saying about an era that we're coming out of that's no longer being run by Vince McMahon. As you mentioned, you can complain about like Triple H and booking decisions and some of the things feeling stale and all that jazz, and I'm not even saying those aren't valid. To me, there's bigger, more emblematic problems happening that make it really hard to support it as a fan right now.
It's weird too, because I think when all this money came in, we were like, oh cool, like Pyro will come back, or we'll have better entrance music, maybe we'll license some more music. I mean, again, CM Punk is beloved. His entrance is great. We can all sing along to his entrance. 80% of these people now have generic riffs that sound the same. And again, it's like, I'm a really diehard entrance music is important guy. And I'm just like, again, I'm a Bayley fan. I've been waiting for Bayley to just have Paramore sing. Becky Lynch has a pop punk band is her intro now because they made a song for her. And I'm like, where is more, like, if you're going to lose some of the entry level stuff, again, you can go to merch too. Like t-shirts went from the WWE shop to being on Fanatics, and they're fucking way more expensive and they're crappier quality than they ever were before. And it's like, if we're going to have to pay up, if I'm going to have to pay up more, where's my money going? Like, am I getting a better product? Am I getting more entertaining this? Am I getting whatever it might be? And to your point of this the product is kind of stale. And, for some people, they're excited that Roman Reigns comes to work once every 3 months and gets to hijack the show and do whatever, and then gets beat up and then disappears, and then we don't follow up on that storyline. But you know what? That's all neither here nor there. But what is different categorically than we're doing now than we were before? I mean, again, we used to have NXT for free, basically, or really cheap to be able to watch how fun the NXT generation was for the long run when you got me back into wrestling originally. I mean, it's some of the best work there. It's like NXT's fallen off. It's now on CW, by the way. Another example of it's on another channel. And TKO is responsible for a lot of that. But what I was telling Chris before the show started is it's fascinating that I also like UFC. Very conflicting given my beliefs in a lot of realms of the world to also like UFC. I'm very well aware of that. And it's fascinating because UFC left ESPN Plus or ESPN Unlimited. Whatever. I guess it would have been maybe on ESPN Unlimited in the same category as WWE, which is bizarre because they're owned by the same company. It's at Peacock. For $60 a year, you can now watch every single UFC event. One single UFC event on ESPN used to be $70. So UFC, again, owned by TKO, the company that owns WWE, they're brother and sister companies now, bizarrely made a move to become more accessible. I will now watch UFC constantly. I don't have to go to bars to watch it. I don't have to illegally stream it. I pay for Peacock because it's got plenty of things I do care about. Again, Paramount's also got its own issues, trust me.
Sure.
But there's enough on Peacock that I like. Again, we also get it for 50% off every year, so I'm paying $30. Well, that $30 goes a long way for me to watch it for the entire year. And I'm fascinated from a business standpoint. Again, Peacock paid whatever $1 billion. That one went to an avenue which, truthfully, you're going to have to pay some kind of money. Man, I used to pay $50 for a pay-per-view at home over like my Cox cable in Carpinteria in California. I'm happy to pay $60 a year to watch every UFC event. I can be a very diehard UFC fan again. And it has basically taken over my WWE watching. Those hours have been 1 for 1 because someone made it more accessible at a price point I can easily obtain. I can't go to UFC. I would love to go to a UFC event. You think WWE is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
$450 for the worst seats at a 17,000 seat arena to watch pay-per-view. It's unbelievable.
Good luck getting tickets to Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano.
Exactly. Where they even do that from?
I don't know.
I just assume it'll be the Intuit Dome again for whatever reason. I just assume Netflix will do that. And so yeah, it's just like it's a weird realm. And again, this expands, as Chris said, to like a lot of other sports, where a lot of other sports watching. Man, I've been an off and on fan, but a pretty diehard fan. Bought a lot of merch, been to a lot of things. I'm like, I want to watch the product, even at its bad version. Wrestling Live is really fun. I dragged Chris along to the Royal Rumble, a couple years ago, and that was incredibly fun and chase. We didn't have the best seats by any means. We went to the NXT show at the Suns Arena as a part of that, and like that's really fun. I have looked back fondly. I got a notification of like reminding me on Facebook that was however many years ago, right around the Rumble this year. And I'm like, man, that was so fun, and I literally immediately like, man, I missed those days. I went to Vegas to watch Elimination Chamber. I went to Vegas to watch Money in the Bank. Like I've been to SummerSlam in Vegas in Allegiant Stadium. Like we have found the money and paid the $110, whatever it is, for all these events. Like I am the guy who did that. And if you're losing me and you're losing the 4 or 5 people I used to drag along to a lot of those things, I can't be the only one, is I guess what I just keep looking back on.
It feels short-sighted, right? And look, we talk a lot about the NBA over the course of this show, primarily because of the Suns, but we've been dabbling in other stuff between sports gambling, some of the like trivia / top 100 lists, whatever. Like it's clearly the sport with the most overlap between the 4 of us that are regularly on the show. The NBA is not much better right now.
No.
I mean, where are you going to find your game right now? Is it on Peacock? Is it on Amazon? Is it on ESPN? Is it on trying to figure out where games are, who's streaming them, what's blacked out, has gotten somehow even worse in the NBA than it has been traditionally for MLB, which has been a struggle for years.
Yeah.
And yet right now, the NBA will say, well, like, this is great. Like, we've never had a better TV deal than we do right now. We have all these partners who are really interested in having the product, and, like, this is great. Is it? Because to your point, I think to myself, I'm a pretty diehard NBA fan. Primarily Suns, but I also dabble in some other NBA. I haven't as much in the last year or two because I haven't had as much time. But, especially as the playoffs are approaching, I'll watch a random, like, primetime game between, the Thunder and the Spurs. Like that's interesting to me.
I mean, when we're on vacation, we if it's during the NBA playoffs, we turn the playoff. They're just on.
Yeah,
they are just perpetually on.
We'll consume the product. Are we like the biggest fans in the world? No. I mean, there's some people that have like 5 games on and multi-monitoring stuff all the time because they have no lives.
My version of in the NFL season,
effectively, yeah. But to your point earlier, off air, like the NFL kind of has all of its shit together because they don't have those problems. For the most part, you can find all your games in one spot. And even though Red Zone did get transformed a little bit and added ads that were not popular this year, you also have that alternative where it's like, actually, you can kind of keep tabs on all the games at once. So it's like, yeah, come on in, watch the NFL. We want you to be a fan. It doesn't feel like a lot of other leagues, at least primarily NBA and WWE, are thinking about it that way right now.
And I really wonder, and again, this is like the doomsday of like, oh my God, what about think of the kids? And I'm like, when I was a kid, and why I got into wrestling is it was on cable. And it was on late at night, and it was on channels I easily had basic access to. So I watched it. then we would pool our money together and buy pay-per-views. We would get all together at somebody's house, and it was like a whole fun gathering type of thing. And I wonder with kids nowadays, because I'm like, okay, well, I got into wrestling because of the XYZ, these wrestlers. And then kids nowadays got into it because of Cena, I'm sure, is kind of a key part of why, even for however many decades. And I really do wonder if like the product is so hard to watch. And like, how do you get a kid into wrestling? Because like, how do you have to either subscribe to all this crap or find it out or have access to ESPN? Like, if I had children right now, if I had a 5 or 6 year old, and I was like, they wouldn't watch wrestling, they wouldn't even know that I really like it because I don't consume it anymore. So like, that's losing a fan and a prospective fan. And I am curious where we look at, and again, the residuals of this take a long time to impact. Like, where are we going to be in this in 18 more years? Is the money that you're making now, is TKO still going to own WWE? Will it be sold off to somebody else? It's probably still going to exist. What kind of media deals will it have? Will it pull back and be like, no, we need to centralize it? Because again, even when the WWE Network was what it was, it also didn't have the weekly shows. They're always delayed going on to them. Same with Hulu, because Hulu used to have Raw and SmackDown, but it was delayed going on. And it's like, well, it's 2 weeks delayed. It's like, well, it's not good. Like, I don't want to watch 3-week-old episodes, right? Because then I can't watch the Go Home show before a PLE, pay-per-view, whatever. And I'm just really curious how a kid nowadays learns to get into it on their own, let alone if their family is like tightening the purse strings and pulling back a little bit. Because like, the NBA, a kid can at least go play it. They can play it Boys and Girls Club or youth or whatever, and then turn into high school. And then naturally you want to watch the sport you're playing, or at least I would think naturally. Wrestling doesn't have that. You don't just like go to school and like be a wrestler in the realm of this type of wrestling, not high school wrestling, obviously. And so like the NBA can cling to that, well, we're a sport, we'll always be popular. And I do wonder for wrestling, it's like, well, you're a TV show. Like, let's be real. You are a soap opera with some action to it. And for all intents and purposes, I have no shame in admitting that. And I just wonder how this translates to the future. Because again, I think it could backfire on the NBA, it could backfire on baseball. I mean, everyone was worried about it backfiring on baseball for a long time, to make out-of-market games so hard to watch, or in-market games harder to watch, versus, again, out-of-market games, you just get an MLB package. I can watch the Dodgers whenever I want because I just get the MLB package, and mostly I can watch all their games if I want to pay them the money. Again, with ESPN Unlimited and stuff, that's gotten harder this year, and it's going to get weirder for the NFL too, because ESPN bought into the NFL network, so I don't even know what we're in for with that. So again, ESPN seems to be the core of a lot of these problems, funny enough, as it desperately tries to survive in an age where no one wants to have cable and add it to its cable package anymore. But it's just, I don't know where it goes from here, and if this is just a blip for now.
It's tough because not all of this is the league's fault. The TV landscape has changed drastically in the past 10 years. Streaming services are now the first place to go. Now, there may be too many of those. They may cost too much. In tandem, you might be paying as much for streaming services as you were for a cable subscription. Different discussion, different time. But the fact remains, there is no traditional TV. Not really anymore. Cable networks were used to be like an offshoot for, like, wrestling was a big deal for those networks back in the day, especially during the Monday Night Wars. It was like, this is the thing that we have. Yeah. Like, TBS was like, we have like this and Braves baseball. That's what you come here for. And some reruns of some sitcoms. And that identity has gone out the window. The landscape has changed. So not all of this falls on the shoulders of the leagues. But as you mentioned, the NFL is still a big deal on network television. Those marquee matchups on a Sunday are still advertised nonstop. And that's your destination for the one day a week that it matters for football. There isn't really a destination anymore for the NBA. There isn't really a destination anymore for WWE. And to your point, I think it hurts the chances for kids to find it because, I mean, you're the master of making a trial account and then making a new trial account 1 month later when that trial account ends. That's worth it to you from a value proposition. For some people, they're going to hit that thing where it's like, oh yeah, you want to try it? Put in your credit card. And they go, nope. And that's the end of the conversation. Yep. They don't engage with the media, so they or anybody else in their household, their kids, their friends, their family, whatever, are running into that same roadblock. So it's like, yeah, for the short term, this is going to be a boon for the leagues that are involved here. The finances of it make a lot of sense. But unless that money is going to appease somebody else besides stakeholders, in the long haul, I think this ends up hurting these organizations. Time will tell, but at the moment, I don't feel especially good about it as far as, like, I mean, it's not like the NBA is going to go under because of this decision, but it might not be as good as it could be 10 years from now because of it.
I mean, again, I think it's what I stress. Like, I love football. It's been the sport I like the most. I understand it the best. I could teach it the best, whatever. part of why, again, it's not like it's perfect. It's not perfect either. Again, Thursday nights on Prime, and I had to explain to people being like, yeah, it's with the holiday ones with Netflix and this one and then Peacock for Thanksgiving, but then Fox and CBS. I'm like, look, at its core, if you pay the $15 a month for the 4 months, you'll get access to the local games, even if you don't have those cable channels, and you'll get the red zone. And honestly, I'm like, if you want to be a casual NFL fan, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being real, like, because it gives you some of the prime. I think it gives you some of the primetime stuff. So the NFL has a package, which I think it's like $60 a year too, right? When it's on sale, if you buy it in the off season and just subscribe, and it's honestly, I think it's worth it. You're like, yeah, it's a pretty solid deal, because if I'm going to pay for $15 for September, October, November, December, and maybe 1 week of January, I'll pay $60 during the offseason, and it's an annual thing. Well, there's my $60 anyways. And like opens you up into preseason stuff. So it's like, if you want to be a casual to moderate NFL fan, I think the door is there. And again, the way it works with the NFL is when you're in the market, if you're cheering for the team, unlike me who has a fucking Patriots hat on, if you're in the market and you live in the market of the team you cheer for, you can watch them every week through this avenue, because there's only one game a week. And I get it. The schedule is built differently. Football is perfect for fantasy. It's why its method of how it plays into the American consciousness very, very well. It's why soccer is very popular in other countries. It's very similar. It plays 1 to 2 days a week for the Premier League, and that's why it works, and that's why it's popular. I think there's something to this being the day for that. But like, that's why also, again, I have lapsed a little bit from a baseball perspective, because it's been harder to watch in some ways with fucking Apple getting in the way and ESPN moving off of Sunday Night Baseball, and the MLB package being a pain in the ass. I can't watch. Again, my team plays the D-backs 9 times a year. I know it's only 9 games of 162. I can't watch D-backs games in Flagstaff without having to have another way to watch it, because they're blacked out, and they tell me to watch it on my local cable channel. My local cable, which we have, didn't. I wrote a freaking story about this at the start of baseball last year. I'm like, that's asinine. I have to have an MLB package to watch the Dodgers because I'm out of market. And then in market, I should be able to watch them. But then they're blacked out because I can't watch them on my package because I'm in the state of Arizona. Watch them on cable. My cable doesn't carry it anymore. Watch it on, funny enough, another MLB.TV package. And I was like, you can go fuck yourself. I'm not going to do that. And I know that's being a little bit snippy about it, but I'm like, 9 games? Actually, sorry, 18 games, 15 games, whatever it is, because the ones when the Dodgers are at home get blacked out too. I'm like, I'm losing 1/10 of the season all of a sudden, because you don't let me watch my team play the team in the market I'm in, and I don't actually have an access to do that. And it's like, I didn't subscribe to MLB this past season. I bootlegged some games plenty of the times. I watched other stuff when it was on and easy to get, but I'm like, I'm not paying for the MLB package anymore. Because it became frustrating. I'm like, I'll just wait around for the playoffs. The playoffs are on TV. I can watch them easily on Fox and TBS and all that. Versus hockey, which again, I've grown. It was a sport I loved when I was a kid. I played when I was a kid. California, it's hard to keep up with. I circled back around to that because my team got good in the early 2010s, and I have been dedicated to watching ever since. On the flip side, my ESPN Disney Hulu package includes almost all my hockey games. And they've kept it in the way that I don't have to work too hard unless I'm on TNT to watch them. My wife is a fan of the Golden Knights. Funny enough, with no Phoenix team, Vegas's territory counts as Arizona now. She paid the $60 or $50 or whatever it was for the Golden Knights package to have every Golden Knights game other than the nationally marketed ones. It's for her to be able to watch this season and just put them on an app on Roku on her phone. And she has become more of a hockey fan because we have the avenue to just buy that package, which I think the Suns have done something similar.
Yeah.
If I remember right. And I know that monetarily that doesn't work the same way as the regional networks and all that worked. But man, that is the way to get fans to give a shit. And it is the best avenue to do it, is just give them team by team packages. And I really wish it wasn't limited to when you live in that area. It was buy the team of whatever package you want. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I might buy 1 or 2 if I did that. But again, right now for hockey, I have a good setup because I'm out of market, so I can watch all that stuff. We don't get Golden Knights games because we're in market and they get blacked out and all that stuff. And so I see how some leagues do it, and I'm just fascinated by who chooses to do what. And I get the NHL's not as popular. It doesn't make as much money. It needs to bring fans in. But you know what? If I had kids right now, they'd probably be hockey fans number 1 because it's the sport we have the most access to with the least financial investment, and they would have 2 teams to watch constantly because we've put that investment forth in being able to watch that.
Even inside of ESPN Unlimited itself, which I'm not super familiar with, but I did see some headlines last month because at the Australian Open for tennis,
Yep.
there was basically the backwards of what you would traditionally have thought was the case for sports broadcasting, which was like, okay, you want to watch some random match on court 12 in the first round? That's the thing that you would pay more for. You're going to go for the package that's like, all right, you can watch all these matches. That's fine. If you're a diehard fan, you want to go a little extra, you'll get to watch those random matches and not just the ones on center court or the second court or whatever. That's all well and good. At the Australian Open, they did the opposite. So when you got down to like the quarterfinals, there's only 8 people left. You would think, well, of course, those are all going to be on the main platform because now there's not a ton of matches happening at once, just these core ones as the tournament comes to a close, the most exciting matches. And instead, those were behind the highest level of ESPN Unlimited's paywall. So I guess you could watch the first couple rounds and, you want to see how Alcaraz is doing in the first couple matches he's got, or Sinner or Djokovic or whomever, then great, you can watch the first couple rounds. The final, you want to watch the final, like the thing that matters? No, you don't get to watch the final. That's going to be $30 a month. And just one example, but again, it's like, that's fine for the short term, but in the long term, I feel like you're hurting your sport.
It's insane.
I'm in an industry where I have watched the short term outweigh the long term on a number of different occasions, so I'm not unfamiliar with the prospects of having to answer to shareholders or thinking about the short term just to eliminate anything. Like, if we can't survive the short term, we don't make the long term. I guess that's all well and good. It feels super selfish to me because you're already asking a lot of people who have, let's say, a Hulu subscription and a Netflix subscription. Those are just two of the biggest ones, right? Some of those plans are going to run you $30 to $40 a month now, combined between the two of them. But still, you may have other streaming services. You may have the monthly subscriptions. Maybe you have Spotify. Maybe you paid for YouTube Premium. And now to have sports coming in and trying to take over this same market, $30 a month might not sound like a ton to the diehard wrestling fan because pay-per-views used to be more than that.
Yeah.
50-ish, typically, sometimes more at certain points. But those were, again, the diehards. You might get a few 100,000 buys for those. You're talking about an audience of millions now, and you're pushing them away. And if you push away your diehards, we made this mistake in newspapers. If you push away the ones who are the most loyal, you tend not to get them back because they're the most scorned when you do.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, we used to pretty regularly get pizza and come over here and watch whatever pay-per-view, the 3 major ones, because it was like, oh, it's fun. We haven't done that for like a year now. And part of it's because neither of me or you have engaged the other person being like, hey, do you want to do this? It's like a lot of motivation there for a handful of reasons. But again, that was even before it was moved over to ESPN. And we just kind of were like, kind of stale a little bit.
We're basically 2 years now, right?
I think so. I think this Mania will be 2 years.
Yeah, Mania with Rhodes.
Because we watched the first night before Michael and I drove off to LA to go watch the second night when Cody lost to Roman. And so that might be the last one. And schedule-wise and stuff like that's been part of it. But again,
sure, but
Royal Rumble, for example, my bitching, PLEs have been moved to Saturdays for the most part, or unless there's 2 nights. But like, Royal Rumble was at 11 o'clock in the morning our time because it was in Saudi Arabia. And it's like, no one wants that. Like, it's weird. Like, why are we doing it at these weird hours and weird things? And again, the WWE is taking more and more PLEs out of the country because they're going to France and charging people $600 in French money to go pay for it, and they're desperate to do it because they don't know when they're going to get another chance. So they're just, every pay-per-view, we set a record for the most money made. It's like, I don't give a shit. Why do you think I give a fuck as a person when I'm seeing we made more money? I'm like, cool, congratulations. Like, that's an earnings report. You don't need to report that to me. And it's like the thing that they announce in the arena or like right after pay-per-views. And I'm like, and that was when I was like, that's a change. As soon as we were doing that regularly, you could feel that the environment was different. And circling back to wrestling, from a wrestling standpoint specifically, when it's like, I don't care. And again, I told Chris this earlier. I'm like, we used to the idea of, you know what, at its heart, wrestling is for kids, and that's what it's also ultimately inspired for. And I'm like, I can respect that we have weird things or this and that. And I'm like, what child is finding a way to get on these streaming services and navigate all of this? Never mind the fact that the sponsorships that are on there are not for kids. Again, the funniest one today is Dude Wipes sponsoring WWE. I'm like, what 9-year-old kid even knows what the fuck that is? And it's moved into, again, a really weird realm of the fans that they are catering to and who's behind them the most. And again, I see more and more pushback, and I see empty seats. And I'm like, again, I guess in the short term, you don't have to care because you cut your deal with Universal through USA for SmackDown. You cut your deal with Netflix. You cut your deal with ESPN. But again, WWE will come crawling back if their ratings are low in 5 or 6 years. And we just did this a couple years ago where they were like scrounging and desperate and sad because their ratings were down. And they were worried about how much money they were going to get when the next media thing. And we'll get back there again. Again, they, Fox dumped them back off because it didn't work as well as Fox had hoped it was. And that was a big deal when SmackDown was going to literal Fox network TV for a while.
We're going to get there again by WrestleMania, potentially.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the indignity of having like 10,000 empty seats at WrestleMania? Like, it's fine when you do, a random Raw in Tuscaloosa, which is not even a city. I made one up. That was too close to Tuscaloosa. It was not my best work. But you can do that. That's fine on a random Monday night in June. But when it's WrestleMania, then it... And you can see why they're concerned, why they're putting that ban in place that you mentioned on watching it in places near the venue. But it's like, that's not going to fix it.
No, it's not. Again, hotel rooms in Vegas for that weekend are not that much money anymore. We realized last year when WrestleMania happened, we could have left the day of the Saturday night, and we could have been in there for basic regular Vegas rates. They were very high at first, and then they dropped all the way back down, and they're still low again. Vegas has got its own problems. But yeah, people aren't showing up. And again, trying to black it out of all these places, like all those other businesses that are going to do wrestling related events to bring people in. The things I was looking forward to going to, I'm like, well, now why would I go out there? I won't be able to watch the show at a bar or anywhere. And you know what's really fun is watching wrestling with people. It's more fun to do it with an environment. Again, one of the sports bars we had gone to, I had done wrestling related stuff. And I was like, I wonder if they'll show it off strip. All you can eat, $50 for the 3 hours, whatever. It was going to be a perfect plan. And now I'm like, I bet they're not going to be able to show it anymore. So I don't even know if they'll embrace the wrestling the way they were planning to, because wrestling is hating on it. And again, a lot of the side small promotions try and do stuff around WrestleMania. And I don't, granted, we're a year or two away from WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia as well. And at that point, that's where I think the breaking point is really going to get, is when you take that event out of the country and out of the country inaccessibly out of the country, you kill a lot of the vibe and things that surround all of that, which is going to be a really big bummer.
Because we think about it from the American perspective, which is fine, we are, but you can drive to Vegas.
Yeah.
You don't have to fly internationally as a starting point to that entire conversation. And you wouldn't be flying to Vegas just to watch WrestleMania at a bar. That would be insanity. You could surely find a place, like a pub back in England or something, where there's a lot of other wrestling fans across the country, especially England and some other countries. You would just find an alternative there. You wouldn't even make the trip in the first place, let alone be like, oh, I'm going to go to a bar. Oh, I can't go to a bar. Well, my whole trip is ruined. It's like, if you're an international fan traveling, you would go to the U.S. as part of this whole package. You're going to do it the whole 9 yards. You're going to go to each event. You're going to go to the fan fest stuff, all that stuff. That's thousands of dollars going out the window if the fan decides, like, oh, I'm not going to go there. And I'm talking about America. We move it to Saudi, like you mentioned, and now you have additional problems where it's like, would I die if I go there? Do I condone what's happened to journalists in Saudi Arabia? Do I condone their treatment of women in Saudi Arabia? There are other semi-political issues that now get added to just the cost perspective that then raise the cost to WWE if their bet is wrong.
Which is really funny. You bring that up about Saudi Arabia. It's like the same problem people have traveling to our country now, is being concerned with a lot of those same things.
Yep. Is that going to hurt the World Cup?
Which seems again, to be. Tried to price a bunch of fans out and jacked up prices really high. And there was some pushback, and then the fan clubs who had been dedicated and all that got a package of tickets dropped way, way down, rightfully so, like 50, 60 something bucks. Was really cheap. And it's like, these are for the fans who have been part of, like, these fans are the fans who already spent thousands and thousands of dollars. We're not going to try and squeeze them to spend thousands and thousands just because the World Cup's here. Which again, I'm curious how that works with international people wanting to come watch all of their countries, and are they going to pay all of that money into a country's economy that they don't really like very much?
And there are alternatives. TNA is kind of under the WWE umbrella now. It's fine, they do their own thing, and for the most part, nobody pays them any mind. Joe Hendry put them on the map a little bit, but not really. You have AEW, which has seemingly found its place as a number 2 competitor, but I don't think can ever eclipse that unless WWE completely torpedoes itself. Like, it has a cap on its ceiling right now.
And it feels like it's already there. ish in a way,
falling away from it potentially, just because they had some star power, but a lot of times they're just bringing in other retreads. Like nothing against Tommaso Ciampa, who I like, but I'm not going to be like, oh my god, he went to AEW. I'm going to go start checking them out now. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care that Andrade has gone back and forth like 4 times in the last 6 months. Doesn't move the needle for me. Even like, Edge is there. I love Edge. I don't give a fuck about him in AEW. Like so it's tough for them to move the needle. They've at least gone viral recently because of some fuck ice chants that started before a championship match and
in Las Vegas,
and a fun facial expression from MJW and the MJF in the process. Like they got a lot of attention, and then maybe some pushback from some of AEW's own stakeholders being like, I don't know if we want this kind of attention because it's super political. But, if you're going to market yourself as an alternative, then the best way to do that, instead of, backing the WWE with its right-wing support at the top, this could be a counterculture moment for them. Is that going to be enough to sustain them? I don't know, but it's a weird time in the wrestling landscape because, as you've noticed, we've barely mentioned anything that has to do with in-ring performance or who's on the rise or what young talent is being displayed. It's all the behind-the-curtain stuff. And we've been moving in that direction for a long time. Like the age of internet dirt sheets is long in the past. The internet has changed everything. But now it's not even about the stuff behind the curtain. It's about the stuff in the boardroom. And that's weird as a wrestling fan because I don't really remember that being the case.
Yeah. I mean, again, it was always on-screen boardroomy type shit.
Yeah, fake stuff.
That we mostly just kind of like ignored all of those type of things. I think everyone knew that McMahon was probably pretty creepy. I mean, you get back into the steroid trials and stuff like that. And so there's some people cognizant of that. I wasn't when I was a kid because why would I be? That was also, it was before I was even a fan and then lumped into that. And then again, it's so wrestling got a bad name at times and it's a bummer because I think that's what the bigger shitty part of this is it's like the base of people that are in there are not, they're not, the opinions of the company and the approach of the company isn't reflective of that. They are merely independent contractors who have very little rights, being honestly, to much else other than they had a dream to be at the biggest company in their career, in their lot in this industry, and they got there during their lives. And like that's really awesome and special. And that's until we have significant defections, and again, not people who just being underutilized or are bitter or getting near the end of their career and want to try something else. We maybe are getting there with a couple of the guys that have come up in NXT that I've kind of kept like an eye on here and there, but I'm like, otherwise, top of the card looks the same as it did for the last handful of years. Again, thankfully CM Punk came back. He's kept it again. Seems like he's much more liked so far and has been a much more positive influence in the last handful of years in WWE than he was.
I know I'm a Punk fan, but I like the idea that he's supposed to be rapidly counterculture still at the age of 47.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, look, he had some harsh comments about Saudi Arabia and then went there. So yeah. I understand the people that think that's hypocritical, and I don't even necessarily disagree. But the overarching point is that everybody in that main event scene is basically in their 40s.
Yeah.
Because even some guys you think are younger, like LA Knight's a relatively fresh face. He's in his 40s.
Yeah.
Jey Uso feels like he's all happening and new. I think he's 40 on the dot. Like, there are young, talented people there. I mean, hell, even like Drew McIntyre's not that old yet, but like he's getting close to 40. Point being, like, there's a Javon Evans. There's plenty of like Sol Ruka. There's names to be excited about, but they're not at the top of the card right now. And the ones at the top of the card are going to be the face, not to use a wrestling term, but like, the face that's forward for this era of wrestling that might end up being a black mark on the industry. So we'll see. Like Cody Rhodes is like the white meat baby face. He's the white meatest baby face you'll ever meet. If this goes south, and we know that Cody kind of likes supporting the right wing side of things as well, that might not be the best look 5 years from now when you look back.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's really because the women's side is in such a better place than the men's side right now from an age standpoint and a youth standpoint and new blood being in at the top of the. I can bitch about some of it being kind of retreaded, but at least they've tweaked some approaches and tweaked some like how people are presented and stuff like that. But man, I mean, who's the youngest best star right now? Is it Dom?
Right now, maybe, because Obi Fema could be, but I don't think he's there yet. He's on the rise. How old's Braun Breaker? 20.
Right, yeah, that's probably the fair one again, which is a legacy guy, and there's a reason why he's
there's some name stuff there, and even then I'm not.
Don't worry, we'll have Steiner bloodline in like 8 to 8 years, 10 years from now, when people get mad at him, he'll be heel and he'll be a Steiner bloodline guy. That's fine.
But the old guard sort of hogging the scene is not a new thing. This was the crux of why WCW failed, for example. And to be honest, also a large part of why TNA failed when we've got all the old heads running around trying to do stuff as aces and eights or whatever. So this is not a new problem for the industry. It just feels doubly bad when it's like, okay, so if I loved the in-ring product right now, I could maybe also set aside some of the other issues, or at least pretend like, plug my ears like, la 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 la, this is all fine. But I don't love the in-ring product right now, so why on earth would I go out of my way to support wrestling in a time when I don't feel like it deserves my support?
Yeah, it's tough.
Because I can be a hypocrite. I support things. Do I love Dylan Brooks? No. Do I tolerate him more than I would have if he was on any other team? Yeah. He has a little bit more rope with me. But yeah, there are times when, as we've talked about this before, but, as a big Chris Benoit fan, I've had to examine a lot of what I've thought about my favorite wrestlers and the industry over the last 20 years since I started watching when I was a teenager.
I mean, I'm a Patriots fan, and at one point, my absolute favorite player was Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah.
I have no shame in it saying that in any way. He was amazing to watch, and the crazy shit that they had him on the field being a tight end at running back, a tight end at punt returner, all this crazy shit. And then I had to reckon with that. Again, I had to reckon the quarterback of my team was pretty clearly just dodging some tough questions at times in terms of, first term of Trump's presidency and things like that. And it's like, yeah, I have to reconcile with a bunch of that crap. I pointed out a lot of where I was like, I don't want this guy. The Kings might trade for a player who I think is one of the grossest dudes in the league. And I've been like, will I watch another game the rest of the year? Maybe not. Like, I don't. And again, which is a sentiment shared on Reddit across Kings fans I can see. And it's like, there's some that you'll take. Again, you try and shut yourself off from every single thing. It's like, good luck with every company that donates to everything. Like, yeah, I get it. You can't do that. And I'm not, again, using a product and being stuck with it when it's the only option is different than like going out of your way to be a billboard of WWE, and I love WWE and look at all this stuff. And again, they've gotten way less money from me in the last couple of years than there was a time where they were getting a lot of money from me and they had earned it. And it's not like they were run by great people then. And now it's just like, man, you made this even more difficult. Maybe I'm a hypocrite. And now I'm just like, well, now you're taking too much money from me and I don't want to offer it. But there's a line at a some point, and we've crossed it significantly with wrestling, and I feel like we're getting there with some of the other sports and things as well.
So it's a weird time, and we wanted to talk through it, and now we're at the end of the episode. Look at that, 50
All I want
minutes.
to do is just take in the products I grew up loving as a child, and stop having them held over my head for $9.99 a month.
Yep. Next week could be the anniversary show.
No, it won't be. It'll be something different.
If it's not, I'm not entirely sure. And then we may have to try and pre-record one or just miss a week. We can certainly miss a week, but I'll have to talk to folks about that. It's hard enough to get them together for one show, so I don't know about two. I do have a couple other really interesting top 100 style topics coming up. Sometimes we come up with a new segment and we do it to death. We've already done it twice in 4 weeks. We might do it a third time, but I have what I think are some pretty fun ones that should be pretty even for everybody, and one that might be really hard.
I mean, again, if we're all here, we have to do the anniversary show.
Yes, but, sometime soon we'll have plenty of other stuff to get to. We talked about not really hurting for show ideas, and we're far enough removed from the TV show theme song one that, like, a tier list is probably back on the table. Like, there's all sorts of stuff we can do. We never have a problem figuring out what to talk about. We just have a problem figuring out who's going to be here to talk about it.
I'll be here. We could celebrate my birthday early, one day early, because my birthday is next Wednesday.
Oh, my God. Birthday episode.
So we can just have a birthday episode.
It won't even be like a major milestone, but...
No, I'm just 36.
Yeah.
I'm old. There.
See, I heard 36, and I thought about 36 Unbothered, and then I thought about Kevin Durant's burner accounts, and...
Oh, God, you went down a path there really quick.
I did, yeah. That's a whole... Like, there's so many other things we could have talked about, even just the two of us. Like, there's been revelations with sports betting stuff, and... tanking in the NBA has been addressed. The Utah Jazz got fined $500,000. There's just so much going on. The news cycle's never slow, and that helps in our regular lives as well as the show.
No, I mean, again, we apparently we're going to get a Vegas and Seattle team in the NBA pretty clearly now in the next handful of years. That report came out, whatever it was, like a couple of days ago. It's like they're going to vote this summer, and it seems like it's pretty much already set.
Yeah, and by the way, is Vegas the best place for an expansion team right now?
Honestly, I could give you 15 on that whenever we have the time to do that.
Yeah, we won't tackle it now. I'm just saying it's definitely food for thought in a way that it wouldn't have been 2 years ago. It would have been a slam dunk.
Because I've joked about it for years that once Seattle or Vegas got a team, whoever got one first, I would adopt that as the new team I'm cheering for. Because I gave up on my Laker fandom years and years ago for the hatred of how the team was run for some of the things we've talked about.
Hmm.
And I just I like the NBA, but I don't have a rooting interest, so it's hard to watch as much. So maybe when we get to that point, we'll have a fun in another 2 years. We can just have a fun. I have to decide if I want to be I'm assuming Supersonics fan or a Las Vegas TBD fan, and go from there, because that might be really entertaining as we just decide which one I should cheer for. But you're
difficult.
right. I don't know if it's the best option right now. But you know what? They're also trying to build a baseball stadium, so
yeah, for a team that's already been shunned once.
yes.
But that's how that works. All right, well, that's the end of the episode. In between shows, you can find us at our website, grayareas.live, where you can find the past 15 years of content, even if this new thing isn't happening. And youtube.com/@grayareaslive to find us live. You can chime in via comments and join the show. And whenever the anniversary show does happen, probably next week, I hope you join if you've been a long-time listener or viewer, because we'll have a couple things for you as well. Goodbye.